you know how cruel, brutal, and merciless a person can become in today's world? There seems to be no limit. Humanity has crossed every boundary. A crime has occurred that makes words like cruelty, barbarity, and brutality feel insignificant. Even the police investigators, forensic experts, and doctors conducting the postmortem were shaken by this case. Friends, how are you all doing? Today, we are going to discuss the Urmila Devi case. This story begins in Kolkata, the capital of West Bengal. In South Kolkata, there's an area called Baligunj. Within Baligunj, there's a sub-locality named Garcha. In Garcha's first lane, there's a house known as Topigar. A domestic worker named Latika used to work here. The house had 2 floors. The ground floor was occupied by the Jan family, and the first floor was where the landlord lived with his family. Latika worked on the ground floor daily. The incident took place on the morning of December 12, 2019, around 10 a.m. Latika arrived at the Garcha residence as usual. Typically, the main door of the house would be locked from the inside, and a family member would open it. At that time, only 65-year-old Urmila Devi, a senior woman, was present in the house. Urmila's husband, Charan Singh, had passed away in 2011. The family's ancestral home was in Sangur, Punjab. Urmila had 3 sons, all of whom were married. The eldest son, Mandeep, had passed away in 2014 due to certain circumstances. His wife, Dimple, aged 37-38, lived with their 2 daughters, Kanika and Gunjan. Gunjan was mentally disturbed. Dimple and her daughters lived in their own flat on 4-1 Kasra Road, near Ritchie Road, not far from Garcha. This area falls under the jurisdiction of Baligunj Police Station. The second son, Deepak, lived in Siliguri with his wife and 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. The youngest son, Balraj, lived in Garcha with his wife, Ritu, and their 2 daughters, Elena and Haven. Although the sons and their families lived separately, they shared good relations. On December 9-10, 2019, Balraj had gone to Cooch Behar for a colleague's wedding. Meanwhile, his wife and daughters had traveled to Punjab to visit her injured brother, who had met with a road accident. In Balraj's absence, Dimple took responsibility for sending food to Urmila during lunch and dinner. Balraj and his family were expected to return by December 13, 2019. On the morning of December 12, 2019, Latika arrived at the house and noticed the main door was slightly ajar. Inside, only Urmila was present. Latika called out to Urmila and entered the house. To her shock, she saw the house in complete disarray. Furniture was scattered, and there were bloody footprints leading from one of the bedrooms toward the main door. Terrified, Latika rushed toward the bedroom. What she saw made her scream in horror. Urmila's body was lying face down on the cot, and her head had been severed and placed a short distance away on the same cot. Blood was everywhere on the floor, walls, and furniture. Worse, her internal organs, including her lungs and intestines, were protruding. Latika ran outside, screaming and crying. Hearing her cries, the landlord and neighbors gathered. When asked what had happened, she could only point toward Urmila's room. Some of them went inside to check and were horrified by the gruesome scene. The police were immediately informed. Soon, a team from the Garcha police station arrived at the scene. Forensic experts were called in as well. The house was in complete chaos. The initial investigation suggested that the motive might have been robbery, as the cupboards were open, clothes were scattered, and valuable items appeared to be missing. However, Urmila's mobile phone was still at the scene. The forensic team collected evidence and documented the horrifying crime scene. The brutality of the act left even seasoned investigators shaken. The question remained, what kind of monster could commit such a heinous act? The phone was lying on the sofa in the same room. The other bedroom was also cluttered with items. Some documents, papers, and empty jewelry boxes were scattered on the bed. However, the wardrobe here had not been tampered with. Initially, the police suspected that thieves or criminals had broken into the house. They might have killed the elderly woman and fled with whatever they could grab. But the way this woman was brutally murdered raised many questions. She was just an elderly lady. They could have easily subdued her without killing her. Even if killing was their intent, they could have done it with 1 or 2 knife wounds. But here, it seemed like all limits of brutality were crossed. It felt as if the killer had a deep-seated vengeance against her. Such a heinous crime could not be the work of an ordinary thief or robber. There had to be more to this story. The police began to suspect foul play. The evidence and circumstances were contradictory. While some valuable items were stolen, mainly from Urmila's room. Most of the expensive belongings in the house were intact. Even the jewelry Urmila was wearing remained untouched. She had gold bangles on both hands, rings, earrings, and a gold nose pin. She also wore silver ornaments on her feet. In the other room, the police found a gold ring lying on the floor. All these observations pointed more toward murder than robbery. The eldest daughter-in-law, Dimple, filed a case against an unknown person at the Garcha police station, citing both murder and robbery. 4 separate teams were formed to investigate the case. The case quickly gained attention and created panic in the area. How could someone commit a murder in such a bustling locality and get away with it? The police began scanning nearby CCTV cameras. After thoroughly inspecting the crime scene and taking photographs, Urmila's body was sent to the hospital for postmortem. The police noticed that all entry points, doors, and windows were undamaged. This suggested that whoever entered the house had been allowed in willingly. Since Urmila was the only person at home, it meant she must have known the visitor. The police began questioning neighbors. They asked when Urmila was last seen alive or spoken to. One neighboring family had a woman named Devona Ray. She told the police that the previous night, December 11th, around 10:30 p.m., Urmila's eldest granddaughter, Kanika, who was about 17-18 years old, had come to give dinner to her grandmother. Since Urmila's younger son and his family had gone out of town, it was Dimple who sent food for her mother-in-law, and Kanika delivered it. Devona added that after giving the food to her grandmother, Kanika knocked on her Devona's door and said, "Grandma isn't feeling well. I asked her to come to our house and stay until Uncle returns, but she isn't coming. I've given her food, but please keep an eye on her." The Jan family had good relations with their neighbors. After this conversation, Kanika left. Devona's statement gave the police an idea that Urmila was alive till 10:30 p.m. During their inquiries, the police learned that the younger son had a drinking problem. Last year, there was an altercation with some local people due to his behavior. He even created a scene during Durga Puja celebrations. The police considered the possibility that these locals might have killed Urmila to take revenge on her son. They investigated this angle thoroughly. The background of the Jan family was also scrutinized. Urmila's second son, Deepak, had been living in Siliguri since around 2007. He had started a business called Aqua Industries, which manufactured showcases for sweets shops and other refrigeration equipment. Deepak expanded this business to Guwahati and Kolkata as well. His father, Charan Singh, and elder brother, Mandeep, were involved in manufacturing equipment for hotel and restaurant kitchens, such as steel racks and commercial kitchen appliances. The family was involved in a decoration business. The youngest son, Balraj, also worked alongside his father and elder brother. Overall, the Jan family was a business-oriented family. After the father passed away, the business was managed by the eldest and youngest sons. When the eldest brother also died, the second son, Deepak, and the youngest son, Balraj, took over the business entirely. These two brothers were managing the family business together, but the police discovered there was some discord between Deepak and Balraj. This led to suspicion within the family itself. On the day the incident came to light, all these details were surfacing. The police were conducting a swift investigation. Using a sniffer dog, the police found a lead involving a CCTV camera, and they began examining its footage. Meanwhile, the landlord, who lived on the first floor of the same house, shared a strange piece of information with the police. He stated that around 12:20 the previous night, he had heard Urmila calling out, "Gudia." From outside, a voice responded, "Yes, it's me." The landlord and his family then heard the sound of a latch being unlocked, followed by the door closing. Everything went silent after that. The police were puzzled. Who was this Gudia? The landlord revealed that Gudia was the nickname of Urmila's elder granddaughter, Kanika. Her grandmother always called her by this name. When Urmila called out Gudia from inside, the voice from outside was indeed Kanika's. Both the landlord and his family were confident they had heard Kanika's voice at 12:20 am. The police found this strange because Kanika had already visited her grandmother at 10:30 p.m. to deliver food. Why would she return at 12:20 am? When the maid, Latika, arrived the next morning and raised an alarm. Urmila was found alone at home. There were no other family members present. The CCTV footage confirmed that Kanika returned to the house at 12:20 am according to the post-mortem report. Urmila's time of death was between 12:30 and 1:30 am. Her body bore 24 to 25 deep stab wounds, 4 to 5 inches deep, inflicted with a sharp weapon. There were also marks indicating resistance, suggesting Urmila had tried to fight back. Fatal wounds to her neck and abdomen stopped her heartbeat and breathing. However, some injuries occurred during a state called perimortem when the heart had stopped, but some organs were still functioning. Such brutality was beyond human comprehension, akin to demonic cruelty. Following the landlord's statement, suspicion fell on Urmila's granddaughter, Kanika. Why had she returned to her grandmother's house that night? The next morning, December 13th, the police team visited Kanika's flat on Ritchie Road, where she lived with her sister Gunjan and their mother, Dimple. Kanika and Dimple were taken to the Garcha police station for questioning. When asked why she went back to her grandmother's house, Kanika initially denied it. But when the police mentioned the landlord's testimony, CCTV footage, and other evidence, 17-year-old Kanika panicked and confessed. She revealed that her mother, Dimple, had instructed her to kill her grandmother. Dimple, when interrogated separately, also denied it at first. However, under pressure and with her daughter's confession, Dimple broke down. The story unfolded. After her husband Mandeep's death, Dimple wanted the Ritchie Road flat to support herself and her 2 daughters. However, her mother-in-law, Urmila, refused, stating that the property belonged to both sons equally. Dimple also wanted to actively participate in the family interior decoration business, but her traditional mother-in-law opposed this idea. Dimple grew increasingly resentful as financial tensions escalated. Her share of the business profits was fixed at a minimal amount, which was insufficient for her needs. This financial strain, combined with Urmila's refusal to transfer the flat or allow her in the business, led Dimple to plot her mother-in-law's murder. With the help of Kanika's boyfriend, Saurav Puri, they planned the murder meticulously. On December 11th, Dimple sent food laced with sleeping pills to Urmila, which Kanika delivered. At 12:20 am, Dimple, Kanika, and Saurav went to Urmila's house. While Dimple and Saurav waited in the car, Kanika knocked on the door. When Urmila opened it, thinking her granddaughter had come to care for her, Kanika signaled Saurav. Saurav entered and, along with Kanika, attacked Urmila. Kanika smothered her grandmother with a pillow while Saurav stabbed her multiple times. They ransacked the house to make it appear like a robbery and fled. The police arrested Saurav in Punjab on December 13th with the help of local authorities. Evidence, including jewelry, cash, and the murder weapon, was recovered from Dimple and Kanika's flat. CCTV footage and mobile tower locations confirmed their involvement. Both Dimple and Saurav were charged under EP Sections 120B, 302, 394, 34, and 201. As Kanika was a minor, the Juvenile Justice Board was requested to try her as an adult. The case is ongoing in court.